Thanks, Jamie, for sorting out the getting everyone into this room. And good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us on this really windy, miserable evening in London in the real world. But I have to say, what a beautiful sunny day it was in that virtual coffee room. And very excited to welcome you all to this session. Michael, who is the avatar waving his hand now, and I are very excited. We were chatting a few weeks back about how much is going on in this space. And if you're anything like me, it's daunting to keep up with the amount of information published on a daily basis, it feels like, on Web 3.0. And it feels like some of this information is deliberately pitched to sound as complicated as possible. So this evening, I hope, is an opportunity to break down some of this and to demystify the metaverse and how it might impact all of us. I think there's a tendency, particularly in the real estate sector, to avoid talking about things like the metaverse that seem foreign and ultimately threaten to undermine the status quo as we know it. So a big kudos to everybody for making it here and for engaging with this topic. I'm excited on two fronts. Firstly, great opportunity to hear from some great speakers about the tech and some of the direct commercial applications of this tech. And secondly, excited to use this session to see what it's like to meet in a virtual environment like this, and to test out what these events might look like on a more regular basis going forward. I should say, I mean, Jamie's kind of already made the point, but the platforms like Spatial that some of you are using now are literally developing by the month at the moment. And this is new tech. So bear with us if this feels a little foreign and experimental at times. I'm now going to hand over to Michael to introduce our panel.
Thank you, Elliot. Unlike Elliot, whose dance moves were restricted to that of the keyboard, these are actually my real dance moves. So this is what happens when you actually get the headset working. So Elliot's stale one is nothing compared to the real life moves. Thank you. That does deserve a round of applause. Just as Elliot says, you know, this came out. This event came out of a conversation we had around understanding what does it mean for the industry that we all often work and operate in, these advancing technologies. And we felt it would be a great opportunity to build out a series of events that would explore this. And so as Jamie, who's been our chief architect here in building the space, and as Elliot mentioned, this is a first for us. And it's about not giving definitive answers, but giving you guys a first-hand experience of what this could be like for you as individuals and you in your organizations, even in your future social ones. And I can say, having played around with this tech on a desktop, and now with the headset on, it is an incredibly immersive experience, and it's hard not to see how this will begin to influence how we work and play. And that's why we've got great speakers here for you tonight. Unfortunately, Daryl, who was meant to be joining us, his family come down with COVID, and he's tried his best to he's tried doing his VR in his car, but unfortunately the connectivity was too bad. But it just does show you that even if he had better connectivity, he could be doing what we're doing now from the back of his car. But that being said, we still have three awesome speakers for you tonight, and the idea is to not overwhelm you, but to give you some context setting around this technology. And Jamie, who you've heard before, will speak first and give you that broad overview of the term metaverse, what it means. He's helped us build this environment, and he's got first-hand experience in building the space. We've got James, who you can see dancing over there. He's getting very excited. From Matterport, he's going to explore how they, as an organization, are seeing this technology integrate into their work. And where's Luke? Where's Luke? Luke's somewhere. I can't see him. Luke, where are you? Luke was here a minute ago. Who is behind me? No, who's an expert in this field, head of product at Boson Protocol, and we'll be talking about the space in a bit more technical detail. So we hope, if nothing else from today, you get some first-hand experience into what it means to be in the metaverse. We hope you learned some new things. There'll be a Q&A session at the end. We can ask any questions you want. If you're watching at home on the YouTube live stream, you can type in your questions and our moderator will piece them through. So we really hope you enjoy it. We've had so much fun putting it together, and hopefully you'll join us in our subsequent sessions where we go a bit deeper into the metaverse. So thank you very much. Without further ado, I want to welcome Jamie to the stage. I'm going to go next to Pikachu over here.
Jem, we can't hear you.
I was about to say that was the first time I've had claps within a virtual environment, but I've also muted myself. So some things stay the same, some things are different. What I'm going to do is a little bit of housekeeping to begin with. So just so you're aware, the camera is my other avatar. So it scares the hell out of my parents, but I can be in two places in the same room. So what I'd say is just be aware in the middle that that's where the stream's coming through. So if you can avoid standing in front of that, that would be perfect. Also, this PowerPoint deck that we've got behind us can be moved by anyone at any point. So please don't click on it when we're in the middle of presenting, because we're going to need to be able to do that. And also what I'm going to do is I'm going to mute everyone in the room apart from myself at the moment. So just be aware. Also, if everyone could stay stuck to seats to begin with, because otherwise you're going to be moving around the room and it's a little bit distracting. It's like having everyone running around in front of you. So if you can get everyone to seats, then that would be perfect. Right, let me just... The best tool that you'll ever find is being able to mute everyone else in a room. What a gem. There we go. So I quickly changed Daryl's name on this to add me in. And for context, I was literally told an hour ago, being like, Daryl's dropped out. Can you put up together a PowerPoint to be able to do this? And like, okay, let's make it work. We're doing technical facilitation and everything else as well, but it'll be interesting experience to say the least. So I'm going to start with a little bit around Metawhat. What do we mean by the metaverse? What's the context of what we're talking and meeting in at the moment? And what does it mean for the future, really? I'm Jamie Brett. So I am a social entrepreneur. I own an organization called Metahub, which was recently set up literally a couple of months ago because it's just about the right time for us to be able to kind of work within this space. Being able to hold events like this is something we couldn't even possibly really imagined even 6 months ago. And the technology to do what we're able to do at the moment has moved along so quickly that I wanted to be able to kind of make sure that we were able to share it with everyone and give those opportunities for everyone to be able to start to get involved within a meta space. As I said, if you just avoid clicking on the presentation because I'm going to be doing that as well. So if you can just keep your clicks to on yourself, that would be fine. I own three organizations. One of them is called Cerebration. It's a social enterprise that provides equitable training opportunities. The other one is Metahub, which I've spoken about, and mental health training, delivering youth mental health first aid. And that might be a bit of a surprising trio of organizations to have. But the way that I see it is they're all connected by this one statement, which is the real problem of humanity is we have the following. We have Paleolithic emotions, medieval institutions, and godlike technology. And when it comes to the industries that I work in, I can't distinguish those from all being so interconnected, because we're in a situation at the moment where utilizing VR in the way that we do, particularly when we've got a headset on, is playing to our Paleolithic emotions. It gives us a sense of space. It gives us a sense of being in a room and being able to connect with people because it plays on those Paleolithic emotions. However, as we move from Web 2.0, which we'll talk a little bit about in a second, to Web 3.0, we're talking about updating these institutions and everything that connects us all together, the systems that we have in place, the processes that we have in place, the way that we operate. And obviously, godlike technology. It's very strange being in a space that you've done a lot to create, but be it bringing 3D Pokemon models onto the front row or bringing all of you into the same room, it really connects people in a way that we couldn't have possibly imagined in the very recent history. So a little bit of context. So we can't talk about VR without talking about where we've been able to come from to begin with. Yeah, if you just want to leave clicking on the slides or moving about too much at the moment if you're in the room, and that would be useful. Thank you. So Web 1.0 is basically where we started off. So the internet was there as an interconnected network of computers to be able to send emails. Basically, everything was read-only. It was all about owning content. It was static. It was designed for low broadband speeds. And it was really focused on companies being able to get out there and put their things into place. Then we moved on to Web 2.0, which is where we started with MySpace and Facebook and being able to connect all of these people together. So you didn't just have a static web page anymore. You became a content creator. You became a content owner. You shared content with the rest of the world. So that's when we started to look at high bandwidth pages, rich content media, microblogging, social networking, sharing apps, videos, Zoom. That falls into our Web 2.0. But now we're talking about Web 3.0, and that's where things in my eyes begin to get very interesting. So this is where we start to look at things being three-dimensional, where we have a space where we are able to interact with our environment similarly to that of the real world. One question I always get asked is it really difficult to do things in VR? And I'm kind of like, well, not really, because everything you interact with in VR tends to be more intuitive. You pick something up like you would do in the real world. You make something bigger like you would do in the real world by stretching it and moving things around. So actually the interface in some ways is more intuitive than sitting on your computer screen because it becomes like real life. So this is when we start to look at things like smart applications, behavior, decentralized tech, blockchain technology, and it becomes focused on the individual really, about customizing and creating an experience that works for you, literally shaping a reality around you. And that's where we kind of go from the World Wide Web, which is just websites connected together, to the spatial web, which is also known as the Metaverse. You might have heard the semantic web. All of these are just different names for the same thing, Web 3.0 or the spatial web. So this is where we don't just become linked by website. It becomes about assets. It becomes about spaces. It becomes about people all being interconnected within a virtual space. As I said, if you can not click on the slides, that'd be perfect. Thank you. So the part where we're at the moment is virtual reality will enable us to accelerate and improve and augment and enhance almost every facet of our existence. Our education, our creativity, our health, our businesses, our legal systems, our politics, and our ecologies. That's what starts to happen when we develop Web 3.0. Now, I don't know if you've ever heard of a book called Snow Crash, and it might seem a bit weird to talk about a VR book from the 90s in the context of where we're at the moment. But Snow Crash was a book about VR, and it was about the metaverse. It's where the phrase the metaverse was actually coined from. And it seems a weird place to be able to get the statement from, really, because it's a dystopian VR reality where everyone escapes there to be able to get away from the horrors of their life. And what's happened in the virtual space is corporates have taken over the virtual reality space, and everyone has to hide in the little corner of virtual reality because it becomes a situation where literally the inequalities that existed prior to virtual reality being established are still present, and they become magnified within a virtual world. So one thing that the reason I bring this up, and I think it's important when we talk about the metaverse, is to think about the equality of it as well, because inequalities such as access to technology or how long you've been in the metaverse combine with pre-existing inequalities to magnify those inequalities. So it's just something that I want to be aware of, particularly when we start to think about the future is already here. It's just not evenly distributed. And I always look to this Google campaign, which ran in 2015, which says that knowledge is always within reach, or you always have access to the internet. And the truth is that can be the case if you have the skills, the knowledge, the ability to go and do something. But without that information being provided or the support being there, you can get stuck at toll gates early on the road. So whether that's access to technology or the way that you utilize technology, that can be some of the barriers moving forward. So I want to really highlight, as particularly in the space that we're in at the moment, that VR and augmented reality and Web 3.0 is in a very transitional stage. I love that old school VR headset that we've got on the wall there, which is a fantastic example of where VR was about 20 years ago to our nice little Oculus Quest headsets nowadays. So the VR space the technology is still very transitional. We're actually not we're not doing things that differently than how we were 20 years ago. And essentially, when you've got a VR headset, you've got a screen in front of your eyes. That's not necessarily that modern. That's not necessarily that innovative. But what is changing is there is a convergence of technologies all together, where that's creating a situation of having access to Web 3.0, NFTs, being able to own your digital content and be able to prove the ownership of it. And that's what's kind of accumulating together in the space that we're in at the moment. So what are some of the benefits of VR? Well, more engaging for sure. There's studies that have been done that says that participants have 27% higher emotional reaction to virtual reality content in comparison to 2D content. Then we start to look at Zoom fatigue. Virtual reality is engaged with for 34% longer than 2D and 16% longer than 360-degree video on a flat surface. It's also a very environmentally friendly option. When we look at e-products, they consume on average 90% less energy and 85% less CO2 emissions per participant per meeting compared to in-person meetings. And as we start to think about this convergence of technology, I want you to think about how this changes things for our spaces, for our events, for our galleries, for remote working, onboarding people, and the whole education system. So I want to end on that quote here, that virtual reality solutions are available on demand, anytime, any device, anywhere, and for you to think about how that changes the world that we work in. Fantastic. Thank you all very much. If you want to press Y on your keyboard, if you enjoyed that, then that would be, or just give us a clap, that would be amazing. I can see people going. Great. Thank you all very much.
Great. Are we unmuted now? Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Me? Great.
Yep.
Again, thanks, Jamie, so much for that. Particularly that was last minute put together, but I hope you appreciate the context setting which we wanted to give you guys today before delving into some more real world instances. So we're very lucky to have to my left. James, you would have seen him dancing the past 15 minutes. Hopefully he can keep us stay focused for the presentation and enjoy. So thank you very much.
Fab. Thank you very much for having me today. This is a lot of fun and really is an amazing experience being here with everybody. So wanted to just kind of start and talk through a little bit of background on Matterport. So Matterport's a leading spatial data company focusing on digitalizing and indexing the built world. Okay. And this, I think, is a very interesting slide that I'm going to hold on for a little bit of time. So when we have quantified how many buildings or how big the built world is, we've calculated that it's about a $230 trillion asset class. That is 3 times larger than all of the global equities markets combined, and it is a fairly analog space. So most buildings don't have digital twins, and being able to capture all of that data and put it online is quite a big task. So when we talk about the size or the number of buildings, we've calculated that there are approximately 4 billion buildings in the world. And of those 4 billion buildings, there are around 20 billion spaces. And if you think about it like this, on the ground floor of a property, you might have retail. In the middle floors of the property, you might have offices. And on the top floors of the property, you may have residential real estate. So 4 billion buildings is the equivalent of 20 billion spaces that can be captured. To give you an idea where we are so far, Metaport have over 6 million spaces on the platform, so 6 million digital twins, which is less than 1% of the built world being captured. So huge potential, and this graph is a good example of that transition over time as we go from analog to digital and buildings really become data. So what does this enable you to do? Capture. So we've got breakthrough capture technology to generate as many digital twins as possible. So how do we take these really kind of quite analog assets and get them online as quickly as possible? Understand the buildings, levels of unprecedented accuracy and detail, which enables this deep spatial indexing, as well as standardizing, connecting buildings, people, and industries together. So similar to what Jamie was saying about, really being able to bring many different industries, use cases, environments together in an interactive fashion. So I wanted to talk a little bit about Cortex. So one of the key drivers here that has been quite unique and really is pivotal in the ability to take assets and put them online is Cortex. And Cortex is our artificial intelligence and machine learning engine. So you can go into a property, capture any property with a 2D camera, and I'll come on to this in more detail in a moment, and you can take you upload that to the platform, and our artificial intelligence can put that property and turn it into a 3-dimensional asset, similar to the one that we're in today. But similar to the one that we're in today, as in it's 3D, with Metaport, it's photorealistic as well. So how do we capture these assets? So we did a recent announcement at Metaport, which was quite exciting, which means that if you have an Android or an iOS device, you can capture any property today, upload it to the cloud. You can open an account for free, upload that model, and you can get a 3D digital twin back. So we have a lot of people who are using this for, just documenting what their current work environment and work from home environment is like, but also it's being used across all of the kind of spectrum for business purposes as well. It's really great, this presentation, but I've got people who are like jumping across the room. It's quite interesting to see this environment. All right, let's keep going. What can you get from derived assets? So I'm not going to spend too much time on here, but points of interest, schematic floor plans. You can get measurements of any asset that you create, as well as photographs, matter packs, and guided tours. Here are some of the capture devices that you can use. On the left, you've got Leica BLK for high definition. Second in, the Metaport camera, 99% accurate. But the right-hand side here, 360 cameras and mobile phones. What's very exciting is how many assets can now be taken online. So with the addition of 360 cameras and smartphones, it really gives everybody the opportunity to take an asset online. And we've worked very hard to commoditize and democratize the access to capture. So Jamie made a really great point in his, which is, access to technology, barriers to entry, whether they're financial or not. Being able to capture a space with a 360 camera or a smartphone is really helping to democratize and lower those barriers of entry. The last one on the far right is capture services. where actually you don't even need to have any hardware. You can very simply instruct somebody to come and capture the property for you. So the building life cycle is something I want to spend a little bit of time on, because this is I think an important part of how we see digital twins, but also an important part of the metaverse. There is a lot of conversation around what is the metaverse, what's it going to be used for, what's the definition? And I think that definition is still being defined as we go. I think the one piece that we feel strongly on is what is the business value that can be taken out of having digital twins. And we've spoken about conferencing like we're in now. This has absolutely got value, and we're all learning from Jamie's presentation and some other speakers, and interacting with each other in a new way. But what other business value can be derived? So once you have once you think about what a building's life cycle is, in the early stages, you're designing the building. So you might go in and capture a property and then virtually stage it and redesign it. Then you might build the property, and you want to have a digital twin of every single week during that construction process. Then you want to promote the property. You want to sell it or lease it. Number 4, you want to operate the property. Now, the operation of a property or office or residential is the largest part of that property's life cycle. It might only take a year to design, 2 years to build, a couple of months to promote, but it might be operated for 100+ years. So how do you operate the property? How do you use the digital twin for facilities management, for asset management, for COVID safety and making sure that there's enough space? How do you use it for disabled access? So operating the property or the building is very, very important. And then we move on to insuring the property and repairing as well. So full property life cycle that can be captured and interacted with and analyzed. So here I'm going to spin through a couple of the use cases in a little bit more detail on how you can derive value from the digital twin. So design, build, operate, capture, visualize, streamline the management of complex data sets and spanning geographies. By being able to capture the property, you can optimize equipment installation, eliminate clashes, change orders due to inaccurate site plans, and many other opportunities as you kind of go through renovating the property and also operating it. So here's an example of a space, and we actually just found out, unfortunately, we can't jump into this space to walk around, but we will share this after the presentation today. This is what a dollhouse looks like. So this is a 3D environment, which you can spin around and interact with. You can download 4K images from everything. You can add measurements in real time. So you can have so think about this. We all own homes. You can decide that you want to redesign your kitchen one day. So you capture your kitchen with your smartphone, upload it to the cloud, it gets processed, you have a 3D model of that kitchen back. You can then go in and start to measure how big a kitchen table can I fit in here? What kind of work surfaces do I want? What's the depth of the cabinets that I need? How wide is the door I want to install? And you can really start to take more measurements from the property. Promotion. Win more listings, sell faster, gain more business. Those are the key highlights here of promoting a property and being able to represent a property as quickly and easily as possible to your customers, and it enables you to differentiate against competitors. But also we've got a lot of case study now on the fact that properties with digital twins sell faster and sell for more money. 3D tour here we will share after the event. Here's some examples of the dollhouse that you can spin around and interact with. Again, unlimited photographs. You've got fully guided tours, which walk you through a building or in an automatic fashion. Schematic floor plans that can be exported from the data, as well as measurements. I gave the kitchen example. Here you can actually see a kitchen example where somebody's measured what their kitchen is like. And you can add points of interest as well. So any part of the property, you can add a point of interest and enable that digital interactivity within a space. Lastly, I wanted to touch on insurance, which is a growing vertical for us. You know, being able to capture a space before and after damage is so important. You know, there's a number of natural disasters and also accidents that happen. Being able to capture your home before there is an accident and being able to send that to your insurance company to say, this is what my property looked like, is the first part. And then the second part is if there is ever, for example, fire damage, you can capture again once that fire damage is there, and you can send that to an insurance company to say, look how much damage there is. And then you can capture the property again at the end once everything has been restored and back to its original state. And then you can compare these different models together. So I can compare, what did I have before? What did it look like when it got burnt? And then how did it get rebuilt? And I can compare these three versions of the digital twin together. Here, you can see some fire damage. And that's it from me. So a very quick overview of our thoughts on the metaverse, and also some more detail on digital twins and how to create and use them and derive business value. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Hopefully now what we can see are some applications from the technology. We started at a high level looking at the concepts, some really awesome real world examples and some real food for thought. I mean, for me particularly, the whole insurance piece I hadn't thought of, and you can see fundamentally how much that solves and how it will be a staple going forward. So thank you to James, and round of applause. Thank you. We'll do some wiggles and dances, whatever you fancy doing to show our appreciation.
It's amazing seeing the interaction from the audience. There was a couple of moments where it threw me off a little bit, but it's really amazing to see people moving and scratching their heads, and it's fantastic. Thank you very much for having me.
Well, thanks for joining. And I think for those who are joining for the rest of the series, for what it's worth, I'd really encourage just renting, and we can send you guys some links where you can rent headsets. Experiencing it like this, how the speakers are and how we are doing it, it's something completely different, I think, until you experience. I know you may be able to appreciate it from there, but once you're inside it, you feel like you're here. There's almost no barriers, apart from the no legs. It's a bit of a giveaway. But anyway,
but it is
James.
Incredible. It's very, very lifelike. Shall I go back to my seat here?
You're over there, aren't you? This is like our speakers bit. And Luke, come on down. Thank you very much. Think a bit of stretching.
Yeah.
Just before everyone gets started, just in case you're not aware and you've just joined the room, if you want to try and stay still when the speakers are talking, because it can be a bit distracting, and don't click on the PowerPoint, just leave it to the presenter to do it, because otherwise you'll be flicking through poor Luke's slides. So all good to go. Thank you, Luke.
Great. Thanks everyone. Good evening, good morning, or good afternoon. It's quite interesting. I've been attending a couple of events for the last few days in Discord as well, where there's people from all over the world. So wherever you are, wherever you're tuning in from, great to be able to talk to you today. And thank you for the invitation, Michael, and the rest for putting this together, and the other speakers for talking about their projects and the metaverse. I'm Luke Gniewecki. I work as head of products at Boson Protocol. At Boson, we build a decentralized commerce infrastructure. What that means, we're building a blockchain protocol that will power Web3 commerce. What that means, and at a very high level, is the protocol we're building is a piece of technology that will enable any developers, engineers, application builders entrepreneurs to use it and create decentralized commerce marketplaces, meaning that you can exchange value and buy physical items in the metaverse as NFTs. However, today I'm going to be speaking mainly about talking and trying to explain what the metaverse is, what NFTs are, and how that applies to digital real estate. Before I start, I just want to ask a quick question. How many of you have heard of blockchain technology? Can you raise your hands, please? Let's try this. Okay, so a few people there. How many of you have heard about NFTs, non-fungible tokens, NFTs? Okay, all about the same amount of people. Great. And how many of you have heard about Ethereum, which is a cryptocurrency as well, but also an Ethereum network that you can build applications on? Great. So a mix of people. I'll try to keep it quite high level, but so feel free to ask any questions at the end. I hope you can you get some interesting insights from today. And I'm also available on LinkedIn if you want to talk, on Twitter to ask any questions. So let's get going. I thought I would start with this thing called the metaverse, and it's a bit of a cryptic term. And Jamie, you mentioned about the Snow Crash novel from the 90s, where that just started. We had the Ready Player One film by Steven Spielberg on Netflix. You may have seen that before, went to the cinema. Just wanted to show you how the term metaverse reached popularity only in the kind of recent few months. There was a bit of a peak there. So this graph is coming from Google search, Google Trends. So 100% means peak popularity. It's not how many people, let me just come back. Yeah, so it's not about how many people search for the metaverse. It's about the kind of, it's an algorithm by Google that is just the average popularity of the term compared to other things people search for on the internet. So you did see a bit of a bump in April, and that was fueled mainly by the non-fungible tokens craze, people buying digital profile pictures, CryptoPunks, digital collectibles, and those NFTs that were very popular at the beginning of the year. But what happened at the end of October was, many of you have heard, of Facebook rebranding to Meta. So as you can see, the popularity of Metaverse just skyrocketed. And I did a similar presentation in August when I was actually talking about that peak in April, how big it was. But if you look at what happened since October, that little peak is just a tiny bit of a bump on the line. So everyone's talking about the Metaverse. Everyone wants to get involved. Everyone wants to understand and want to know what are the opportunities in the Metaverse, including real estate. So just quickly on the kind of components of the Metaverse, and I'm using Matthew Ball's Metaverse framework. I can share some references if you'd like to read more about that. But overall, the Metaverse comprises 8 different components. It's a compute, so computations that are needed to support the Metaverse, which means hosting the virtual worlds, including this one, which is probably hosted in AWS in a cloud computing network. Networking, that is the devices you need to be able to connect to join a virtual meeting like this via your Wi-Fi, 4G, 5G. Virtual platforms, and people quite often confuse. There's no guidebook. There's no clear definition. It's still a space that's evolving a lot, but people often confuse the metaverse with virtual platforms. The best way to think about this is metaverses are those virtual platforms sit on top of the metaverse, and you have multiple platforms. You can jump from one another. Those could be apps, virtual worlds, or Oculus Quest applications. We've got interchange tools and standards, which is what are the tools that we can use to create avatars, to exchange data and communication. So I'm going to go back quickly. We've got payment services, and that's very important for when we talk about blockchain technology, especially because blockchain allows those decentralized payments to happen without any centralized intermediaries. It keeps going back and forth. I apologize. And we've got content, which is the user-generated content, services, and assets. And we've got hardware, of course. So hardware is how you can access the metaverse, and that could be using an Oculus Quest, a mobile phone, or any other hardware. Now, a few things about what's happening now in terms of the metaverse. So we are on the on the brink of two new converging trends. That's consumer gaming, fintech. This keeps changing. Is this on a... Sorry, Jamie, is this on the timer or something like that? I'm not even pressing any buttons.
No, it's just
But-
if anyone's in the audience is clicking on the presentation, can you not click on the presentation because it's going to move it along? So just make sure you're not clicking on anything while you're in the space. Only Luke, you're the only one to click on it.
Great, excellent, thank you. So very quickly on gaming. So gaming is, there are 3.2 billion gamers in the world, and that means mobile gaming, console, PlayStation, PC. But gaming is much more than just a game as it used to be in the 90s and 2000s. We've got the core game experience that comes with it. We've got additional services like DLC, subscriptions, competitions. Then that evolves into this kind of community-based gaming where you have Discord servers, people organize themselves together to talk and play games and exchange information. So what's happening now is games are platforms now. It evolved from a single player kind of experience to experiencing a story to more of a play, view, and engage. And the metaverse is seen as the evolution of gaming, which integrates non-gaming experiences. And what that means is people attend virtual events like this, or people attend virtual concerts like Travis Scott's concert in Fortnite, if you have heard, which was visited or viewed by 40 million people. And that obviously brings new experiences, but also new business opportunities. So in the context of digital real estate, where you have virtual events, organizing concerts, you can own land in virtual worlds and spaces, so you can rent that land, you can charge brands for IP activations, and have a number of media and product partnerships, which I'm going to talk about later. There are different things that are driving the growth of the metaverse, and those are popularity of online gaming, expansion of decentralized infrastructure, especially blockchain technologies, since 2017, 2015, which when we started building apps, and then 2020, 2019, 2020 forward, NFTs as this first use case for Ethereum blockchain that showed how it could be used and slowed down the whole network, if you know this story. There is also development on the hardware front. So those Quest, I think, Jamie, you showed the early version of VR. They were very kind of bulky, expensive headsets. And that's all very similar to the internet in the 90s. If you remember those times, I used to connect to the internet with the dial-up modem. It was very clunky. You had to configure your Windows 3.11, how to connect to the internet. What happens now is your fridge has access to the internet. Your iWatch has got access to the internet at any time. So the bulkiness and the connectivity, even some of the challenges we've had today, how to access this hub, how to set up a presentation, clicking slides, all those issues will be solved within time. And within that means more interactive, more immersive experiences. And then coming back to real estate, how that can benefit people who are looking into investments in digital real estate. So I've been building products since in the blockchain space since 2017. And for me specifically, what's important is an open metaverse. It's that a metaverse where you can go to any virtual world you want, where you can interact and interoperate with other worlds, other people, exchange assets, and that's very important, which is slightly different to, for example, what Facebook's are trying to do. Although they promise that they want to be more open and interoperate, they're still predominantly Web 2 business model, which means they have a bunch of shareholders they need to return profits to, and their business model is based on selling data for advertising. But there are opportunities for any Web 2 company to convert themselves and to become more of a Web 3 business, and that brings a whole new set of possibilities there. So very important to note is that the metaverse can exist without blockchain. Now I'm narrowing down and talking specifically about blockchain technology. The metaverse can exist without blockchain technology. However, blockchain tech allows for new business models, new experiences, new engagement. And that means, for example, play to collect and play to earn type games. I don't know if you've heard of a game called Axie Infinity, where people play the game and are rewarded with crypto tokens, which can be exchanged on exchanges. That used to be happening in the gaming industry before. People would mine gold in the World of Warcraft, like some other, or StarCraft, and pay people from developing countries, for example. But now the difference is that it's all legal. You can go and play your favorite game, and with that game you can generate some crypto, like passive, like some income as well, and feed your family, as it happens in the Philippines, for example, which is big for play to earn. And important to note is that the metaverse will be evolutionary and not revolutionary. It's not something that will wake up and it's just like a new iPhone came out and everyone there was this boom. It's going to be a slow transition from those slower devices to faster devices, from bulky headsets to smaller headsets to Apple glasses and maybe Apple contact lenses, for example, for better immersion. And now, so play to earn is this new kind of model, which I'll quickly talk about. It uses Web3 business model where players can games like Axie Infinity. What it does basically in the Web3, you can reduce the take rate. So a take rate in Web2 is how much a platform charges for users for using the services. With Facebook, it's 100% take rate. You get no funds, no money from Facebook for bringing your family to Facebook, for messaging and posting content. So you get no revenue, no income from that. On YouTube, the take rate is 50%, for example, where creators get 50% from YouTube, which is pretty good. I think that's for Web2 businesses. Apple Store is a great example. They charge 30% of the developers. It's still quite a lot. It's a very controversial thing. They charge people who publish their apps about 30% of revenue, which is quite controversial given that the only thing they do is to provide a platform for listing apps, and the rest of the people who have to build apps are developers, of course. Now, but what Web3 does, it changes the model to this called non-extractionary business models, which means you could charge as little as 2.5% and 4.5% and return all the rest of the value back to the users. So in the case of Axie Infinity, people play a game. They have their Axies that there's some entry. I'm not going to go into much detail, but there's some investment you have to do to enter that game and play. And what it does, it only charges about 4.5%, I think, and the rest of that value is returned to the people who play the game, which means there's no centralized party that gets 50 or 70% from the revenue generated. Now, and that is going to be even more popular. There's a ton of investment from venture capital firms into consumer fintech and gaming. So you're going to see even more and more play to earn game-based economies, products, and experiences. But I'm specifically want to talk about what are NFTs, and I think, as you can see, I've narrowed down from metaverse kind of to blockchain to some of the play to earn mechanics, and very quickly on NFTs, because I could talk about this for hours, so I tried to scratch the surface today. Essentially, what are NFTs? So NFTs are non-fungible tokens, which are unique cryptographic tokens that exist on a blockchain and cannot be replicated. They're different to cryptocurrencies because each NFT is unique in its own way. The most popular network blockchain for creating and selling NFTs is Ethereum blockchain, but there are other networks and blockchains that are emerging now to offer different types of NFTs and cheaper transactions and lower costs. At a high level, NFTs can be used to represent real-world items like artwork and real estate. So what James was talking about, and he mentioned about digital twins. I'm not sure if you use blockchain to do that, but you can create digital twins using blockchain technology. And tokenizing those assets allows you to have this publicly verifiable digital scarcity that anyone can go and check if you own that asset. Anyone can go and check how many types of that token of those assets are available, who traded it before, and how much it's worth at any point in time. And that public verifiability is the key thing here, and that's what blockchain enables. And that wasn't possible before. Last but not least, NFTs can also be used to represent people's identities, property rights, and more. And we're only just scratching the surface with what could be done with NFTs. The future generation of entrepreneurs, and some of you in this room, may come up with some unique ideas how NFTs could be used in business or in the context of real estate. So very high level, what are the examples of NFTs? You may have seen CryptoPunks here, which is this PFP which were a PFP project. For those who don't know, PFP is a profile picture proof, which means I buy a unique NFT which costs not as much money, I guess, when you enter the space, and then that accrues in value because it's unique on the crypto blockchain. And some of those punks cost like hundreds of thousands, even millions of dollars. I know it sounds quite unusual. It's a JPEG, it's an image anyone can own, but because it's a publicly verifiable digital scarcity, and you can know that James, for example, or Jamie owns this CryptoPunk, doesn't matter that you can still copy and paste this, download this image on your folder on your computer. It's very similar to like Mona Lisa, for example. Like everyone can have a T-shirt with a Mona Lisa on top of it. Anyone can download Mona Lisa and have a desktop background with it. But there's only one person in the world that owns the Mona Lisa painting or other famous work of art. And for no surprise, art is one of the most popular form of NFTs at the moment. You may have heard about Beeple, a digital artist who sold his artwork, a digital artwork, for $69 million at Christie's auction recently. And there are more and more digital artists making a living because of NFTs. And with NFTs, of course, what comes is this global distribution of the internet. Anyone can go online, search for digital work, buy an NFT, and prove to the world that they own that NFT, nobody else. The other things that are quite popular are in-game items, which, again, like I said, play to earn, changing gaming business models. Music as well. People release the music as an NFT, and how that could work in real life. If you were into music, you could buy an album of an up-and-coming band, let's say, as an NFT. And then what it gives you, for example, is that NFT could be an access token. And then when that band becomes popular, you can maybe have unique access to backstage because you were the very first early adopter of the music that they've released. You believed in them, you were fan number one. Maybe you get extra access to benefits, discounts on their albums, or maybe discounts or access to the backstage at the concerts. And there's a number of ways you can use NFTs as access tokens, or things you can use to leverage the fan base as a creator. Trading cards, digital collectibles, big moments, NBA Top Shots, which is an app that sells video moments. People buy a real video, a piece of video from like NBA games, and they can own that true moment of the history. And there are multiple projects that are doing something similar now. Again, memes as well. Nyan Cats. I don't know if you've seen a Nyan Cat, which is this famous GIF with this. If you go on YouTube, it's got like 300 million views and probably lots of kids watch it. It's no more than just a 3-second animation. And that got sold for $600,000 as a crypto art. So memes become art, and memes become digital collectibles. And it's also because the more shared a meme is, technically it's more valuable because people talk about it, people recognize it. Another thing that's quite popular is domain names, like Ethereum name servers. You may have heard of Budweiser recently changed their Twitter profile to bud.eth or budweiser.eth. They paid about $100,000 for that .eth domain name, and that domain name costs $5. If you could buy it now and it wasn't reserved or purchased by someone else, you would buy it for $5 for a year. But because someone bought it earlier, they just made $100,000 on that single purchase of the domain name. Virtual fashion is another important thing, especially around sustainability, digital items, or even in avatar kind of clothing and items that will be popular. And what we do at Boson specifically as well, we work with fashion brands, for example, who create physical virtual items and sell them as NFTs, as physical products. So you can go into the metaverse and buy a jacket, and then you get the delivery of a physical jacket using Boson technology. But last but not least, you can also do the same with, let me go to the next slide. You can do the same with virtual land. I think there's a bit of a delay. Yeah, so also digital real estate. And now I'm talking specifically about the digital side of real estate. So as an example, there are a couple of virtual worlds that sell digital real estate. And what those digital real estate things are, they're NFTs. So each plot of land, each square on a map, you will see in a minute, is an individual NFT, a unique NFT. And you can truly own the NFT, and that NFT has coordinates, just like in real world, you know, where that land is based. So land is an example of sandbox. They use this term called land is a non-fungible ERC 721. The ERC 721 is this kind of more of an engineering-facing standard for anyone who builds on Ethereum uses the same standard. I'm not going into too much detail. But the NFT is a piece of digital real estate that can be monetized in a variety of ways. So I'll just explain about the 3.2 billion gamers around the world. I've just been talking about how the fintech the convergence between fintech, consumer, and gaming, blockchain-powered virtual worlds and games are coming. And what's happening is also the popularity of virtual worlds themselves. So by owning a digital piece of real estate, you could host events and experiences. You can charge people who actually, just like in the real world, you own a venue, you charge people for access to your venue. If you own a piece of land in Decentraland, you can build a virtual shopping mall or virtual event space. You can set up a blockchain payment system in that event space. People come and pay with their crypto wallets to access the event. You could stake with your land. I'm not going to go into much detail, but you can earn passive income in this sandbox, for example. By owning land, it gives you, you can stake your land to get extra benefits on some of the kind of liquidity mining they offer. Again, I don't want to go into too much detail into that, but there are a number of opportunities like by owning, that you can make money on by owning land. Another very simple thing is renting land. I do own some virtual land as well, and I actually talked to some games developers who are looking to build a virtual experience on my land, and I'll be charging them for that, for example. So another example of passive income, just like in the real world. Again, all the skills and people who are from the real estate industry here, all that stuff can be applied into this digital world, and all the same principles apply. You know, you buy a virtual land in a good spot, in a spot that everyone, you know, is visiting in a virtual world next to a famous brand, perhaps. Just like in Sandbox, Adidas have got their own virtual space as well. If you have land next to Adidas, that means there will be a lot of people coming and visiting that space, which essentially means more footprint for your land. It's very much the same principle as in the real world. You could sell advertising space, and there are actually companies who built technology to put banners in your virtual land, and that technology is amazing. They're actually building more than that. It's not just going to be a static ad, which is boring, like in the Web 2 world. It's going to be much more engaging and immersive experience because of the metaverse. That's what you can do. You can sell NFTs, organize NFT auctions. That's what we did at Boson a couple of weeks ago when we were launching our own virtual commerce space. So we did an NFT auction, bringing NFT collectors and buying in this real world and paying with their wallets and Ethereum accounts in that event. Or you can just go and sell land, and the opportunities are enormous. And just to illustrate what I mean in terms of selling land, by the way, this is the kind of one of the slides about the metaverse ecosystem. Today, specifically, when I refer to virtual land, I'm actually talking to decentralized virtual worlds. Those are the big four: Sandbox, Decentraland, Somnium Space, and CryptoVoxels. They were one of the very first ones. There are more coming, but there's also a bunch of other centralized virtual worlds like Roblox, Minecraft, Fortnite. You can't buy land there because they're not using the blockchain technology, although they may be embedding blockchain tech in the future. But I would recommend looking into those decentralized virtual worlds that have those NFTs for sale in the form of virtual land, the virtual land in the form of NFTs for sale. As I said, Decentraland, Sandbox, Somnium Space, and CryptoVoxels are those called the big four of the virtual world. There are many more. Many more are being built at the moment, and I think 2022 will see a boom of new virtual worlds. There's also some up-and-coming projects like World by Web and more. And this is a space you have to do your own research and see what's interesting out there, and what are the kind of most common lands that are being traded. But just to illustrate of how it works in Sandbox, this is an example of an ERC721 token. If you buy that NFT, you have it in your Ethereum account, so you can use your wallet app, MetaMask, or any crypto wallet you use if you use crypto wallet, and you can view that land. Then you can transfer that land from that wallet, or you can list it on OpenSea. This is a map of Sandbox, by the way. And Sandbox has got about 166,000 unique NFTs. So every single square is a piece of land. There are bigger and small plots. And there are some popular brands that are being, Adidas is one of them, which this is probably not the updated map. But there's no more than 166,000 lands, and there won't be more. So the earlier you get in, just like in the real world, there's limited number of land you can buy and or buildings you can purchase or estate. So there won't be any more. So the earlier you get in, the better the returns and profits potentially in the future. Again, see, doing your own research is important because anyone can build a virtual world and use blockchain technology to do that. But what's important is what's the plan for that project? How are they going to build up this land? What sort of experiences they'll be creating? What kind of brands are getting engaged into those virtual worlds? So this is just an example of how a virtual land is listed. And this is just one plot, by the way. So there are those different NFT marketplaces. One of the most popular ones is called OpenSea. And by the way, what's really cool about that, if you own some virtual land, and I recommend anyone to try this, or any NFTs, any assets, you just go to that website, you create an account, you authenticate with your Ethereum account or with your wallet, and what it does, it automatically knows what you own because it's all publicly verified, publicly proven. Nobody knows your name because there are no names for Ethereum accounts, but the system knows what you have, what inventory you've got in your account, and that shifts the dynamic because you don't have to do anything. What happens is you just register. People know what virtual land you've got, and they poke you with offers. So as you can see, this is an example of someone who's actually listed land for sale because there's a buy now button. This one costs about $3,000. And depending on when that land was purchased, if it was purchased, for example, in May, it cost about $300. So currently the price of Ethereum, of the price of land in Sandbox is $13,000 per each square. That's an average price, and that is just going and increasing. The more brands come to the Sandbox virtual world, the more hype Metaverse gets, the more interest there is from people to purchase that land. So supply and demand thing. As you can see, this land has a number of offers there. So there's people who are just placing those offers. They're trying to kind of bid and encourage people to sell. If you have not listed your land for sale, for example, you're still going to get offers into your email, and you can choose if you wanted to sell the land or not. And what's really fascinating about this technology to me is that if you want to sell your land, you just press the button, yes, sell, and then the funds are automatically transferred into your account. Obviously, as investors or people who sell land, you still have to do your taxations, and you have crypto assets are liable for tax as well. But how much simpler that is. There's no lawyers involved. There's no tools or fees you have to pay. No solicitor fees. The only thing you have to do is to buy land in a very good spot and find the sellers to purchase, find the buyers to purchase that later. And just an example of what we did at Boson as well, very quickly. So this is from June. So in June at Boson, we purchased a significant plot of land in Decentraland, one of the big 4 virtual worlds, where we built a virtual mall, which is a Metaverse commerce experience. You can actually go there and play a mini game and buy some physical items as NFTs. We paid $704,000 for that. That's not the highest amount. Since then, another company just 2 weeks ago, they bought virtual real estate for $2.4 million, and that's another Decentraland purchase. So that Decentraland was launched in 2019, I think. Yeah, 2018, 2019. That it was been going for about 2 years. It's still getting more adoption, but those land opportunities are there. It's quite hard to buy land in Decentraland. You can do it in OpenSea. If you want to purchase a significant plot, you have to go manually, and there are special people that help you to kind of negotiate a land purchase. And I know some of them, if you're interested or you're looking for some advice. It's not me. I'm not doing that as my kind of way. I'm not doing consultancy like that. But those people exist, and what that means, there will be new roles for land selling advisors, new people who can, new type of business opportunities that you will require to, people who can do some virtual land analysis for you, or for anyone who wants to invest in virtual estate. Again, probably a lot of this is copying and pasting Web2 business models into Web3, but a lot of the skills that you have and people in real estate have applied to the virtual land. And we are yet to see what are the new things that are going to come as a result of this. By this publicly verifiable scarcity, who owns what are the new things you can do and build and in Web3 by owning virtual land, we're yet to see. So that's a very fascinating space to get in and just to start reading and get some general information. So that's about it. I had to go quickly through the deck. I appreciate we kind of over time. Thank you very much for your time today. I hope you enjoyed it, and let me know if you have any questions. Yeah, thanks. Great to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I don't know, Jamie, if you want to unmute everyone. Once again, Luke, Thank you so much. Thank you, James. Thank you, Jamie. Again, sorry we've gone over. I think as all the speakers sort of intimated or said overtly, we could be talking for hours. And for us, Elliot, myself and Jamie, there was a lot of technical emphasis in the first event. And I think going forward, we'd love to dive a lot deeper into these technologies and the applications. For those who still have some time, any questions for any of the speakers, you can raise your hand and ask a question, or you can actually
if you're in VR, actually physically raise your hand. If you're on the computer, just press the 1 key and that will raise your hand and we can have a look that way.
So anyone, any questions at all from anyone in the audience or on the YouTube live link, which I can't see myself?
I'm just looking on the chat at the moment. I can't see anything, but just give me one.
Whilst you're looking, Luke, I've got one question. When we're talking about land, when people buy physical real estate now, they tend not to necessarily worry about the value of the pound changing dramatically. To what extent, when people are buying in this space, are they also need to be cognizant that what they bought, the value isn't driven purely by scarcity or demand? Also, if you've been following ETH for the past few weeks, it's been very volatile.
Yeah.
So how much does that factor into purchasing?
That's a valid point as well, because of course, and if, so for example, Ethereum is one of the most popular NFT blockchain that powers NFTs at the moment. Yes, it's true. So, if Ethereum goes up, then the value of your NFT goes up as well, and that's like another world to consider. So and crypto is volatile. It's subject to volatility. Markets have been down for the last few days, I think, and that's a very important factor to consider. Good point, Michael. In the future, there may be some more stable ways of purchasing NFTs. At the moment, a lot of them are like Solana, which is buying on a Solana blockchain, or most of the purchases happening on the Ethereum blockchain. And yes, that's really that's also prone to volatility, as any cryptocurrency you may have heard about. But those problems hopefully will be solved in the future, and that. But yeah, that's something it's very important to consider, and that's this nature of the crypto-based ecosystems where you have tokens go up and down in value.
Awesome, thank you. I know we've gone over, but we've lost some people.
There doesn't seem to be any comments. There doesn't seem to be any comments on the YouTube chat either, so we are all good.
So if no one else has any questions, Elliot, any last words? Juggling? Put your headset on. I'm muting. What are you doing?
Sometimes there's a little bit of a problem with it. You might need to jump back in and jump out, Elliot, but it might be for another time.
On behalf of Elliot, myself, and thank you so much for joining the first of what will be three series. Thank you to our speakers over there, James, Luke, Jamie.
Thanks,
those
everyone.
who still haven't jumped off. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time. Thank you very much.